You're watching Leeds Student Television. I'm Nixon, and today I'm going to be talking to some of the candidates for the role of Leeds University Union Affairs Officer. First of all, we're going to go down the line and let each candidate briefly introduce themselves, so their name, their course, and why they're running. So first of all, let's start with Rosa Hibbert.
Hi, I'm Rosa. I'm a final year PP student, and I'm running because over my time in Leeds, I've seen lots of issues that I think need to be resurrected, but most importantly, I've absolutely loved my time here and I want to ensure everybody else has that same opportunity.
Nice. Next up, Aysha Burton.
Hi, I'm Aysha. I'm a fourth and final year biochemistry student. I'm the school rep for molecular and cellular biology. I'm the founding president of Pan-African Society, and I'm a residence life assistant at Charles Morris. I'm running because I want to get the union back to its original definition of fighting for the students first and foremost, and making sure that everyone enjoys their time at Leeds.
And finally, Jonathan Tam.
Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan. I'm a second year PPE student here at the University of Leeds. What I really want to do next year for the student exec is to really promote the inclusivity of everyone in terms of union affairs and communications, as I've really seen the issues that we've had around the university that really do need to be addressed as quickly as possible with as much student input as possible. Yeah.
Okay. So the first kind of big question, I think, that's kind of relevant to kind of your agenda. If you were elected, what would be your #1 policy? Let's start with Rosa.
So my #1 policy revolves around sustainability. So since first year when I got here, I volunteered with the sustainability team. I'm currently community rep for the community officer, and obviously that position is no longer existing next year. And I sit on the sustainability advisory board. So I really want to combine everything I've learned over the past 3 years to ensure that the union and the uni does their best that they can. And this would involve combining strategies together. As soon as we get into power, it would involve making sure that we have sustainable business fairs and a plastic-free freshers.
Brilliant. Up next, Aysha.
My main point is complete and total financial transparency of the union and the university. I think COVID has highlighted some major pitfalls and has made some fundamental changes in the university, and I think making sure that that's clearly communicated with the students are actively involved in every process of where their money goes and how it moves through the university and how the union influences that. I think it's really important.
Great. And finally, Jonathan.
So I think there's 5 equally important pillars to my campaign, which I really want to improve in terms of union affairs and communications. So firstly, it would be inclusivity. Secondly, housing. Thirdly, transportation. Fourth, safety. And fifth, transparency. If I were to choose one, which I want to delve into a bit more, it would definitely be the inclusivity. As through my years at the University of Leeds, I have really seen that unfortunately a lot of students are not heard in a lot of the organizations around the union, especially in the societies, as a result of a lack of diversity in societies. So I really want to let the students be heard regardless of their background.
Okay, so moving on. This year has obviously really changed the game for students. Obviously with coronavirus, it's impacted a lot of students' financial security. So I'd like to ask, do you take a strong stance on issues such as the safety net, rent reductions, and tuition fees? Let's start with Aysha.
I do absolutely take a strong stance, and I think that it's the job of the union to take as strong a stance as they can on the side of the students. They are our voice at all major meetings, including the Senate. When it comes to the safety net, COVID now is as bad as it's ever been. The impact that it's had on the current students is that they've been experiencing it for almost a year now. It's had an even longer impact on their education. They are asking for it, and it's the job of the union to vocalize how strongly they feel about it in terms of not rent rebates, but the tuition fee refunds. it's only fair that as consumers we are paying for what we're receiving, and what we're receiving isn't the full university experience. And the same goes for international students who are paying up to 3 times the amount of home students. They should be receiving the equivalent refund of what they're paying for. And the same goes for rent rebates. I work in first year accommodation. First years left in December, but they're only getting a rent refund from when lockdown started. They're paying for far more than they're receiving. They were asked to come to university with the promise of 50-50 in-person teaching and online learning, and some of them have never even stepped foot on campus, which has only led to a further disillusion from the university and union and the community as a greater whole. So yeah.
Brilliant. Same question for Jonathan.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's extremely important that we look at the student fees, especially for student fees, and the housing that the university is providing, and really scrutinize it, because unfortunately this year, because of COVID, we were given the promise from the university that as students we would receive as much support as possible and as necessary, and unfortunately I just haven't seen much of that support, if any, with regards to union affairs, especially because international students pay about like 3 times as much, including me, as local students. And the reality of the matter is that we just haven't received the support that we deserve for the amount of money that we're paying. And I have heard that like other universities are trying to increase their hardship fundings and many different types of fundings for international students. And I really think that on behalf of union affairs, it is really important to look at what support the university is providing, whether it be reductions in rent, and see if we can push it a bit further to help the students who genuinely need it at this time, and are just not receiving the help that they deserve. So yeah.
And finally, Rosa.
Yeah, so I think the overarching topic that's the issue here is that for far too long that it's been too reactionary what the university and the union has done. Like, this pandemic now has been going on for a year, and how is it that we're still making up safety nets and policies as we go? Students need to be informed and they need to be protected, whether that's financially or with their well-being. Yes, the rent rebate has been extended till the 8th of March, but that's only for some students. Like, some students have already moved into their accommodation and weren't aware of this. And it's like, it's always just a little bit too much too late. And the same applies for tuition fees. We've not heard anything about that. And especially the safety net. Like, I'm in final year and I still don't understand the safety net that I really fall into. And that's just not okay. I've had modules cancelled left, right and centre. I've had learning online, it promised face-to-face. And like, my degree and my research is being compromised for it, and the communication just needs to be really clear to students that they are being taken care of and that they are protected and that they're being put first. Because at the moment, every single year, first year, second year and final years and postgrads, internationals, for some reason are not feeling that like they're being protected. And as Union Affairs, I will make sure that every single student and every single year is taken care of.
Absolutely, thanks very much. Right, on to a different question. How would you help to increase transparency and effective communication between university leaders and students? Let's start with Jonathan.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's extremely important that we increase transparency, whether it be through the union, whether it be through university leaders at our University of Leeds, because unfortunately, what I've seen is that there's way too much bureaucracy within the university, and we just aren't able to properly communicate what we as students genuinely need to the higher ups at the university. So what I think is really important is that we should make the expenditures of the union as well as the university as as transparent as possible through effective communication between the university and the students, as well as the union expenditures as well. So I believe we should set up a sort of a committee in a sense to really enable the communication between the students and the university with regards to fees, and sort of have like democratic votes on how the money should be spent, whether it be through infrastructure, whether it be through coronavirus measures, whether it be through safety nets, and different sort of hardships funding, and many different facets of funding in which the university should take responsibility in allowing the students to have the most effective way to basically spend the money to allow the students to have the best experience as possible at the University of Leeds. Yeah.
Wonderful. Rosa.
Yeah, so communication is key to making sure that students feel like they belong at the university. Without communication, everyone will be really disconnected and isolated, especially right now when everything's online. Most people haven't even been to campus recently. So communication is really vital. One of my pledges is to set up a forum either monthly or semesterly, which will bring staff from the union and the university and students together, so that if there's big topics of concern, so like this year, for example, we've seen loads of petitions gaining momentum about issues that people are concerned about, whether that's to do with curriculum changes, whether that's to do with rent, whether that's to do with tuition fees. But time after time, we don't really know what's happening to those petitions. And it doesn't necessarily even mean that it has to go to government level, but it'd be really nice to see that the university and the union are listening to what students want. So within this forum, students would be able to bring those issues and we'd be able to listen to them together and reach the solution. And every single person that comes to that forum would be provided the service to create a proactive plan of action to ensure that it is enforced. It's not just like, oh, we'll listen to you, move on, whatever. And actually really take action so that communication is there and everybody's being listened to.
Brilliant. And finally, Aysha.
In terms of transparency, there is no reason that the students shouldn't be able to see exactly where their money is being spent. It would be about providing that information in an accessible way so that it can be easily understood. I do understand the value of confidential information, and in terms of like science, as a scientist, I do understand that when money goes into certain places, it can't always be shared, but just knowing that it is in that general area is all students are asking for. It has to be communicated in a clear way. It has to be, I think also the fact that communications aren't always translated into different languages. For all of our students who English isn't always their first language, it can be quite difficult to understand. The union also shouldn't wait for the university to release statements on important matters. Even if we don't have an understanding of what exactly is going on, just letting students know that those decisions are in the works, that they are being discussed, that they are being made, reassuring students and asking for their input. I think open forums where they can ask all of the exec what is going on. Students can bring any concerns, questions that they have to them, to members of staff who work at the higher levels in the university, who the exec work closely with. It's important to have that open line of communication. Improving the relationships with the reps is also vital. The reps are on the ground. They know exactly how the students feel. They are the student voice at course level, at school level. They know exactly what's going on, and their voice should be heard more openly. As it stands, they only really communicate with their union administrator. So they should have a much more available list of emails that they can then contact all students on. And then they can get much more valuable feedback. As a union affairs officer, I feel I could really improve the lines of communication and transparency across all of the university.
Next question, so we'll start with Rosa again. How do you think LUU should be better investing its finances to support the needs of students?
Yeah, so this is a hot topic, obviously, because of the pandemic. It's going to have long-term financial impact on many students, and it's really important to actually understand how long into the future this is going to have an impact on many people. So obviously there are hardship funds that are available. I'm not sure if the communication has been very clear about what they are and who they apply to and how they're available to people. I also think a really key aspect as well is that a massive part of the union is the societies, and often like societies are ridiculously expensive to join, especially now. People have paid like hundreds of pounds at the start of the year and they haven't even been able to enjoy any of the things that they've paid for. So I think making sure that societies are financially accessible to all our students is a really key way that the union can make sure that all students from all backgrounds are able to engage with union activities.
Brilliant. Okay, Aysha?
I think that one of the major issues with the University of Leeds is its financial inaccessibility, and that at the heart of it has the union. We have the hardship funds and they have been improved. The budget for them has been increased this year because of COVID, which again was a reactionary response. But I think that diverting money from things like, you know, we have one of the most expensive university shops in the country with the co-op, making sure that our wellbeing services are properly financed. One of the major concerns that I've had from speaking with students is that the wellbeing services that the union can provide are extremely strained because they just don't have the resources to provide for the huge student community that we have here. One of my pledges is to increase the budget for the wellbeing services, and if possible, gain a whole new counsellor, possibly even using placement schemes with the School of Psychology and the School of Medicine and Health to get counsellors on a placement basis who are training, and then they can work with the union so that they can then provide a better mental wellbeing service.
Brilliant idea. And finally, Jonathan.
Yeah, definitely. So as one of the largest student unions in the whole of the UK, it's extremely important that the LUU is able to cater to all the needs of all of the University of Leeds students. So what I know of right now is that this year, the university is providing the same amount in terms of funding for the union. However, they might be cutting it next year as a result of increased expenditures due to coronavirus, hardship funds, etc., etc. So one of the key things I really want to advocate for is to at least make sure that the funding for the vital services at the LUU for next year is kept identical or increased, because it's really important that we look at services that the LUU provides, such as well-being, such as help and support, and realize how vital their services are. So what I think is really important is that we increase training for the help and support and the well-being services in a way that all students will be able to and also be encouraged to just talk to the teams, and as well as like Nightline, etc., so that the well-being of students is really catered to as much as possible by the union. Yeah.
The next question, I'm actually going to start with Rosa again, because I think it's directly relevant to what she said was her sort of number one priority. How do you look to uphold sustainable values at LUU and promote sustainable practices at the university?
Yeah, so sustainability is key to the functioning of everything that we do now. It's really, really, really important that we tackle this head on. And I also think that so many resources in the uni are ignored. We literally live on a bed of researchers and the smartest people in the whole entire country, and I think it's not really utilised in the way that it could be. So one thing that I do really want to do is establish with schools a set of sustainable modules in which, no matter what subject you study, you're able to learn about that within the world of sustainability sustainability. That's really key. And I will pledge to make the union, our campus and our university as eco-friendly and as waste-free as possible. Sustainability goes further into society than that. It's all about equality. It's all about making sure that everybody has the best chance at their university to propel onwards from here. It's about employment opportunities. So I think we need to really channel that into just the core values of the union, and especially what the Union Affairs and Communications Officer will do to make sure that everybody that comes into the uni and out the uni is given the best chance possible.
Okay, same question for Jonathan.
Yeah, definitely. I think sustainability within the union and the whole of the university is incredibly important, because sustainability isn't just about environmental sustainability. It's also about employability in sustainability, education in sustainability. There's so many different facets to sustainability that we should really encourage both the union and the university to promote as much as possible, whether it be through events held at the union, whether it be through a carbon neutral goal that the university is hoping to achieve as soon as possible. We can try to push that closer and closer. And whether it be through the daily lives of the students, it's extremely important that we look towards the sustainability goals that we have, and we really try to improve them to provide a sustainable education in a sustainable campus, basically. Yeah.
Okay, and finally, Aysha.
I think if anything, if COVID has shown us anything, it's that we can eliminate our paper use and our physical resource use effectively by moving online. It has shown, however, some major pitfalls in terms of maintaining a high standard of education, maintaining student well-being, maintaining student mental health and physical health as well. I don't think that the union has done enough to communicate to students how they can maintain their health at home, maintain their mental health at home, and we haven't been putting enough into those well-being services. We should be using our own internal infrastructure that we have here. We have lecturers from all corners of the world studying every topic that you could imagine. They have a wealth of knowledge that isn't used enough. They can provide insight into employability, they can provide insight into education beyond their actual topics, and working with the academic side of the university more effectively to improve the experience that students have here in terms of their education, I think is key to maintaining a sustainable university.
Okay, so one final question now to sort of finish on something a bit more positive. When the current coronavirus restrictions are over, what is the first thing you want to do in Leeds? Let's start with Jonathan.
Yeah, definitely. I think that what I really want to do is that I want to plan for a freshers in 2021, which is like none other before, because unfortunately freshers last year was non-existent basically because of coronavirus. So one of my key points that I really want to do is that I want to collaborate with other universities around Leeds to make and other unions around Leeds to make sure that freshers next year will be as whole as an experience as possible, and really to make it as big as possible, to be able to network with people, to be able to just have fun in general, and that's just what I really want to do when coronavirus is over. Yeah.
That sounds great. Next, Rosa.
I don't know if I misinterpreted this question, but I thought you were talking about me personally. I was like, I'll be in terrace as soon as
No, it's fully
these restrictions are over. Catch me with a pint in the sun. But no, in terms of the union and what I'll do as union affairs is as soon as we get into power, is with the other exec members, is to devise a really, really clear COVID strategy, so we can rebuild and include every single student in that input to make sure that we're going to be protected. We've had enough of these reactionary policies. It's not enough. Okay, from the start of the year, we will set out clearly how we're going to protect students under a range of circumstances that may arise, and make sure that every single student is included in that.
I think you spoke for all of us when you said
I was actually like picturing it there. I was like, oh, I can see myself there so clearly.
Okay, last but certainly not least, Aysha.
It's going to sound a bit selfish, but I want to see my friends. Guys, if you're watching this, I miss you. I miss them a lot. I do. And I want to show the first years that I live with and the first years that are living everywhere else and the rest of Leeds, the Leeds that I know and love. I've been here for 4 years now and I know the city so well, and it hasn't been Leeds for almost a year now. And I think getting back to that original definition of a union, you know, to creating that sense of community, fighting together to improve the whole experience and learning from each other, showing each other the things that we love about our university, rebuilding just the things that we've lost with COVID. I feel like there's a general sense of like hopelessness, but there definitely isn't. Together, we can move towards a stronger university and a stronger union.
Wonderful. Right. Thank you all so much for joining me. It's been lovely to talk to you, and I wish you all the very best of luck in your campaigns. Voting for LeadLUU will be open from the 1st to the 4th of March, and LSTV will be live streaming the results on the 5th. See you later.
What's going on, people? You tuned into LSTV. I'm Deniz Barlas, and today I'm going to be having a chat with a few of our candidates for this year's Leeds University Union Affairs and Communications Officer. I'm currently joined by Chris, Jody, and Izzy. I'm going to start off by asking each of you to briefly introduce yourselves, starting with Chris, please.
Hi there, I'm Chris Lee. I'm 22 and a second-year postgraduate student studying security, conflict and justice in the law school. I want to run because I want to improve your student experience in relation to your money, your achievements, your future, and our union. Thank you.
Hiya, I'm Izzy. I studied English Literature and Theatre Studies, and I'm the current Union Affairs Officer at LUU. I want to run because I think there's so much more for me to do in this role, and I really want to bring the Leeds community back together after the tough year that we've all worked through.
Hi, I'm Jody. I'm in my final year studying BA Human Geography with Transport Studies. Now, the reason that I'm running for Union Affairs and Communications is that doing your final year with nothing to look forward to means that I totally empathise with everyone that's been affected. So as a mentor to first year students, I also understand how much you guys have missed out on a great student experience, and I really want to be the one to give it to you next year.
Nice one. Okay, cool. Well, lovely to meet all of you lot. We might as well get started with the first question. So, if you were to be elected this year, what would be some of your top priorities from your manifesto that you'd like to implement in the 2021 year?
So I think one of the first things is to ensure that students get the value for money with the union. And one way which we can do this is to implement a loyalty scheme that works across our outlets. So I'm old enough and been here long enough to have used the old scheme called Yo-Yo. That got removed because our tills were unfortunately too old to accommodate their system. However, we've got new tills since then, and we can now hopefully implement a loyalty scheme, whether it be Yo-Yo or an in-house one. The app that Cafe Nero uses with Yo-Yo is tailored perfectly for their brand, and that's something that we could move across to here. So it could be an LU branded app, which with all the loyalty points that we want in it as well.
So my first one is really to connect our Leeds community again. I've spoken to so many first year students who have really struggled to make those connections. And I think we took for granted so much, like those little conversations that you have walking between lectures, just joining clubs and societies and being able to meet the committees at a freshers fair and really find out kind of what sort of people are for you. And that's so much of what uni's about. And it's something we're really proud of in Leeds, that we have that really strong community. So I think the union needs to find some really creative ways next year of rebuilding that and of helping everyone kind of connect again.
So my key priority issues are building on from resilience from COVID that we've all experienced this year. So a lot of them are about how we can build from that and really improve the student experience next year. So firstly, from talking to the student community that I'm currently part of, one of the biggest issues brought to my attention was communication. And as a student myself, I've definitely felt that sometimes it was a bit slow, and especially for some of my international friends, it was almost a waiting game. And that's definitely something that I think we need to work on.
All right, moving on to the second question. What are your stances on the issues that have been brought to light by the COVID-19 pandemic, such as tuition fees, rent reductions, and the safety net?
I think all three are a very big issue in themselves. So in relation to the tuition fees, it has shown that the universities are a bit complacent in taking the tuition fees from students, and the government is a bit complacent in its approach as well towards students. Countless times watching the daily briefings, the education secretary would come up, talk about schools, and universities wouldn't be mentioned. This needs to change, and the tuition fees taken from students just haven't been worth the money. So I think LeadLUU should join in with the national campaign led yesterday by Leeds London School of Economics campaign to reclaim the student fees. LeadLUU should take a leading role in that. It shouldn't be sat on the sidelines. It should be at the front of the queue to put the thoughts of the students of Leeds to the government themselves. Secondly, rent reductions. It's a bit of a complicated picture in terms of the university being a landlord as well as private landlords in this accommodating students. So on the one hand, we need to push the university to look at the value for money that students have got from the student accommodation on campus. So I know they've given rent rebates already for the last lockdown that we're currently in. I believe they should be extended for whenever lockdown ends, and also include the November lockdown as well. Because students just haven't got what they were promised in September in relation to the face-to-face teaching on campus. Quite easily, a lot of the students could have stayed at home in the parents' homes and carried on. But we also need to be aware that not all students have that luxury of being able to be at home. So that's why the accommodation needed to be there as well. We can't pretend that every student is as lucky as everyone else. And thirdly, the safety net. From my personal experience, I had to read the no detriment policy 3 or 4 times to understand it. And I think if it's that complicated to understand for me, it's going to be way harder for other people as well. So I think in order to improve that, the Tom Ward, part of the leadership team, should do a live Q&A with the students in order to ensure that he's putting out the information there as well. And they also need to put out a simpler classification calculator so that people are easily able to see what their grades can be in relation to the no detriment of semester 2 1920, because I think it's a bit complicated to know what counts and what doesn't count towards your final classification at the moment. So I think that's something that they should be introduced.
So on the tuition fees, I think that this year has exposed the fact that it's a flawed system, that students shouldn't be customers. If you think about another service that you pay for and then you don't get what you expected, you have a right to ask for your money back. But because of the way that this system works and the way that the government is funding higher education, that option hasn't been available to students, and it should have been. If they're paying in the way that you would pay for anything else that you buy, then they should have the same rights as any other customer. And so we need to approach this year with that mindset, and then we need to look forward to the future and challenge the fact that students shouldn't be customers at all. I think on the rent refunds, obviously students shouldn't be paying for accommodation that they've been told not to use. For as long as students are told not to return to campus, then they should be getting their money back. I think, again, looking forward, this has also exposed the fact that there's room for more flexibility on student accommodation contracts. And it's something we should be thinking about both in university accommodation, but also in the private sector, that there are so many circumstances that mean, you know, students are signing contracts way before they know what the circumstances are going to be. And so it's really shown us this year that we need to have a much more flexible approach to accommodation contracts for students. And then on the no detriment policy, I think it's really important that we not only think about the degree classifications, but actually making sure that students are in a position where they can do the assessments in the first place. You know, we need to be rethinking the approach to assessment so that students are in a position where they don't feel anxious about taking these assessments. They don't feel like they're not going to get the grades, that they're already given assessments that are tailored to the way that this year has panned out. So we need to make sure that there's more support in place and that there's a different approach to exams than there has been in the past, because there's been a different approach to teaching this year. And then when it does come to the no detriment policies, because inevitably there are circumstances this year that are going to mean that students might not achieve the grades they deserve, there needs to be a tailored approach so that individual students on different modules, on different programs from different schools, understand exactly how it affects them and what their opportunities are to make sure that their grades are protected regardless of what might happen for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so everybody this year as a student has been greatly affected by COVID, and with the safety net policies and rent reductions, it really shows that it's inadequate in terms of what we've been given. So the rent reductions, although there's been partial rent reductions for university accommodation, a lot of private rentals have not had to do the same things. So it means a lot of students outside of student accommodation have had to pay for the full year contract, and this is despite the government asking them not to go back. So it's really quite a mixed message that students are really finding it difficult to understand, and the university really needs to kind of show solidarity with students and kind of guide them rather than encourage the marketization of education, which as students we're just being taken advantage of. I will continue supporting the fight to get that fairer grading system and also the appropriate rent relief. In particular with the safety net and no detriment policy, I myself have found it very difficult to understand. Within my cohort, some of us like myself that have done the study abroad, we've had nothing changed for us, whereas students that didn't do, and it's quite difficult to then work out your final classification. And between schools there's also different rules which make it even harder to understand. So I definitely think we need to push the university to, you know, stand loud and clear, join in with the LSE campaign, and really push for what students deserve.
How will you guys look to increase and improve the transparency and communications between the university leaders and the students?
I think transparency is key. At the end of the day, we're paying tuition fees in order to come to the university, and we don't often know where that money goes. So for instance, in the 1920 annual accounts, the university took in over £430 million in tuition fees, yet we don't know how they spend that. For me, I would implement an infographic which shows how the university spends your breakdown in order to show how the university spends a proportion per pound. So it'd be a pie chart which would describe how the university spends your money in what ways, whether that be staff, whether that be facilities, or whether that be student activities that it puts on. Another thing that I would do would be to ensure that not only the Vice-Chancellor comes to our Q&As, like we're having one in the next few weeks, but also other staff that are at the top of the leadership. So Tom Ward is a very influential man in relation to the education service that the university puts on offers. We need to make sure that he's held accountable, and he should come along to our Q&As as well. I'll also ensure that university conducts a comprehensive COVID-19 response review in order so that they can learn the lessons from the pandemic in relation to the virtual learning, the communications that they've sent out, and the approach that they've had on campus to learning and student experience?
I think we've definitely learned through this year that there needs to be a different approach to communicating with students, and fundamentally it's about finding out what information we want to know from the university. A big problem I've been hearing is that students are getting inundated with loads of emails that have information that they have to scroll through to get to the one thing that they want, and we know so quickly as exec officers what information it is that students want to know. We know what you're talking about, you know, assessment, libraries, the no detriment policy, all these things that are making students stressed, they're making them anxious, not knowing the information about these things. And so it's making sure we're getting to the root of the key things that students want to know about, and that's what's being communicated. It's making it more student-led as an approach rather than just throwing all the information out there. And I think as LUU, we can help with that by making our communications more student-centered, so that it's students that you're hearing from, you know, hear from clubs and societies themselves about the events that they're running, hear from your school reps themselves about what's going on within the school and how they're continuing to work to improve your academic experience. So at LUU, it's about giving the voice to students, and at the university, it's about listening to what they want to know.
Yeah, so in terms of communication this year, it's been massively impacted. When I've asked students what their number one concern was, they kept saying, I hear about things too late, or it's too hard for me to figure out what this means, or I'm inundated with emails that I don't have the time to scroll through and click all the links. And also for international students, they felt massively disadvantaged with communication because obviously it's in a different time zone. They felt it hard to keep up with studying. How do they engage with the lecturers when it's just at a different time and lectures are at different times? So I think communication is such an important area of target next year. And one of the focuses that I think is really important is ensuring that this move to online education is still the same quality and better if this is the way that we're going to work next year, and if COVID potentially continues. We can't let this pandemic kind of ruin the good quality education that we have, and if anything, we need to take this opportunity to step up our game. So to improve that communication and to enable a faster way of contacting lecturers, I propose that we should create the open door hours policy that was previously in person and move that online. So for a lot of you, you wouldn't have experienced this before, but in my first and second year, the open door policy enabled you to go without booking and just turn up at your lecturer's office, and you could ask about anything, whether you wanted to discuss a topic that you weren't sure about or a future career prospect. And that was one of the most useful things that I feel like we've lost this year in terms of communication. For me, and I know for a lot of my friends and a lot of students I've talked to, it's been really difficult to kind of make progress because email correspondence takes a lot longer than if you were to just walk in and ask a question. And so that's why I really want to move that kind of experience online through a booking system that makes it a lot more efficient and instantaneous when you do need help and you want to have that one-to-one session when you need, rather than have it delayed and slowed down through email correspondence. So that is one area of communication that I really want to improve upon.
How do you look to uphold the sustainable values at the LELU and help to promote sustainability practices across the campus?
I think sustainability and being green can no longer be a choice for us. It's something that we need to help, that needs to underpin all our lives, and LEU should be part of that as well. I've watched the Perfect Planet by David Attenborough series, and it just shows what destruction the human race is having, and we need to be able to combat that. We need to be able to change. We need to ensure that we meet our 2023 plastic-free pledge that we made in collaboration with the university. That means that single-use plastics to be eradicated by the year 2023. We need to make sure that the COVID-19 pandemic does not dent that progress that we've made there. Also, as part of the exec, I work across the officer team in order to make sure that green activity underpins LEU activities, and it's a key part of what all activities on campus that we provide are working under. And then moving forward in relation to the building, in order to make sure that's green, get rid of the non-LED lights and make sure that we're as energy efficient as possible. And then we need to also work with the university on that. It's not just something that the union can do alone. We need to make sure that the university isn't investing in projects which use carbon. So
I think that sustainability needs to be a core value of the union. We know that it's important to students, and so it's about engaging everyone with that. I think we need to make sure that both the union and the university are communicating in a really accessible way about our sustainability process, and also acknowledging that it's about so much more than our environmental impact, and addressing inequality has to go hand in hand with that. So that needs to remain a priority, and the two need to be embedded with one another. This year, I've implemented a sustainability strategy at the union, and I've also established an advisory board of some students who are really engaged in this area. So next year, the priority would be branching out and including those students who maybe haven't thought about this before, or think that it's not accessible to them, and finding out how we can make it something that we're all engaged with every day in every area of our work.
So for me, students and sustainability go hand in hand, and if the LEU is to reflect what students want, then sustainability is a #1 priority. So I think one of the main issues that we have is kind of the transparency in understanding what kind of sustainability initiatives are actually being undertaken. So one of the key things that I think need to happen, and what I would push for, is to rethink and redesign the way we provide information about our sustainability strategy. I think often as students we kind of don't understand the progress, we don't know where the wins are, we don't know where we could improve on. And if we were able to deliver the information in a more digestible and understandable way, then we could hold the university more accountable for when they spend money in areas that students don't agree with or don't think is good for the environment. A good example is before co-op it was Essentials, the shop was called Essentials, and then now it is currently co-op. And as I walk into co-op, I often see so much plastic, and obviously we have the plastic-free pledge. But doing more research, I realised that actually the reason LEU is working with co-op is because co-op has its own plastic reduction sustainability strategy. And as a student and asking my friends, that is something that we had no idea about. So I definitely think it's really important to look at the way we're communicating our information about what we're doing, so that we can hold the university or LEU accountable when we're not making that progress and not making good changes for the environment. Secondly, a big part of sustainability that I'm really passionate about is helping student businesses and kind of supporting that sustainable student community. And especially out of COVID this year, there's been so much student economic resilience, and I've seen so many startups, so many people engaging with painting and craft, and I really think that the union should celebrate this kind of self-development. So I also think it's important, if we're to spend our money in the union, to reinvest it back into the student community and ensure that it really is sustainable. So whether that be sourcing some of the cafe food from student food ventures, or having the Union Square have a space where students can show off their art, sell their art, or sell their music. I think that's really important in showing solidarity with students during this tough time and helping support them economically as well.
Lastly, And on a bit more of a lighter note, what would be the first things you guys do when restrictions ease in Leeds?
Well, I'm a big football fan. For me, I'll probably go to the football and then with my friends, and then no doubt head to the local pub to enjoy some socialising, which I've missed extremely.
My first one is definitely to hug my friends. And then I'd love to go to a house party, I have to say.
I mean, I think we all agree on that one, just to like hug someone, and I'd probably just hold my friend's hands and link arms and just not let go, because I haven't seen or spoken or just given people a hug for so long that I think I'm just going to do that for a good 30 minutes. So yeah, and then hopefully either go to the club or go to the pub, one or the other.
Nice one, perfect. Well, I want to say a big thank you for all of you guys in joining me today. I think we've got some really strong candidates here, and I'm looking forward to see how this one pans out. So I want to wish you all the best of luck with your campaigns. And as for you guys at home, voting will open on the 1st of March and will remain open until the 4th. And on the 5th of March, you can catch live coverage of the results day right here on LSTV.